Good morning, everyone. So, as usual, we will start with the short breathing meditation to quiet your mind. So try to make yourself comfortable, relax, both your body, mind. Then keep your attentions to the breath. Simply just observing, watching, and being aware as you breathe in and out. Then we can think our life will be much more rich and better and more meaningful if we can live more compassionate, more kind life. That means being more compassionate, loving, caring to oneself and to all other sentient beings, especially those who come into contact with us in our everyday life. And if we are able to live our life that way, we create less harm to others. We create better, peaceful, and harmonious environment to others and oneself. And that make all of us, all, more safe, feeling of more safe, secure, more happy, more peace. And at the end of our life, we have less regret. and feel good about the way we live our life. And in order to live more compassionate, more kind, more caring life, we need to cultivate more compassionate mind or attitude, more loving kindness, sense of care, concern. And that might not come naturally to all of us. But through training your mind with the practice meditations, we can cultivate those positive, helpful, healthy attitudes. And for that, we need to practice, meditate. And for that very reason, we are here, so we can be reminded of that. So we can continue to engage in the practice in our everyday life as much as possible. And may our coming together with a good intention become cause and conditions to attain our own highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be even more benefit and greatest help benefit to each and every sentient beings, including oneself. Okay.
Page 73. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Page 75, the second paragraph. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dhamma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects. With the supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of lamp, an illusion, and drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merit sentient beings, attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. The short mandala offering, it might be on the bottom of 97 or the top of 98.
Sashibegi Joshin Medo Dam Sangye Shinto Mi Te Owai Dokun Da Shin Chöparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kami Ayami.
Refuge in bodhicitta, first in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Sangye Chodan Soge Chonam La Chanju Padu Dani Gyatso Chi Daki Chöshe Gibe Sonam Gi Chola Penche Sangye Jupasho Sangye Chodan Soge Chonam La Chanju Padu Dani Gyatso Chi Daki Chöshe Gibe Sonam Gi Chola Penche Sangye Jupasho Tungje tu chen su ne do dam je bang be je tam be su ne tun je be go dam de la cha cha lo. So we have been discussing about by following particular texts how to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, awakened mind, bodhicitta for those who have not actualized, and for those who have actualized, how to not to diminish it, but increase more and more, and by utilizing whatever situation that we encounter in our life, utilizing those situations as a source to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, and develop even more stronger loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind, as well as whatever little loving kindness, compassion that we might have, trying to bring that in our everyday life, especially when we are dealing with difficult situations. And by applying that loving kindness, compassion, or whatever little wisdom we have of understanding of reality, trying to bring that into our everyday practice in every different circumstances, and especially when we are faced with difficult, and then by applying them, how to make our mind more stronger and not being overwhelmed, not being so our mind not being so down, and as well as not allowing those difficult situations to become more negative. And more negative and more frustration, anger, hatred, whether it is towards ourselves, whether it is towards the situation itself, or whether it is towards the others, which we believe they create, they contributed or created for that situation. And so how can we keep our mind, even in those difficult times, more calm, more peaceful, and being courageous, and not losing the confidence and the hope, and not only that, utilizing that situation for our spiritual growth of the path, And so that is what we have been kind of going through different verses in relation to that. And we talk about how to cultivate the Bodhisattva mind, and also having cultivated the Bodhisattva mind, how to engage into the practice of six paramita or perfections. And we already went through the practice of the perfection of wisdom, and then perfection of generosity, and perfection of moral discipline. And the third one is the paramita or perfection or practice of patience. And the practice of patience has been always crucial, necessary in our human life. And it seems is even more relevant and even more crucial in this our fast moving modern world. Because the modern world has become so fast with technologies, everything's becoming more faster and faster. And people have become more and more impatient because we want everything to be fast and fast. And we want everything to be more faster and faster. And you expect that. It is almost like taken for granted that everything should be. And so because of that, it seems like the way I see and it feels like people have become more impatient because of that. And because of impatience, and then there is a lot of, problems that arise from of that. Because of impatience, sometimes we can be very harsh on ourselves. We can be harsh on others. Even when things are improving, when even things are going in the right directions, because our impatience, because we want not only to go in that direction, not only we want it to be improved, but we want it to be very fast. And when that is not happening, even it is improving, even though it is getting better, instead of being joyful that because things are improving, things are getting better, but because of impatience, because it's not getting better as fast as we would like, it's not improving as fast as we would like, that impatience makes us to be more unhappy instead of being happy about the situations. Instead of appreciating the positive change, instead we become disappointed. And so, it makes our life much more unhappy because of impatience. And also a lot of time, even though we are making progress in whatever, on a spiritual level, on worldly level, in different areas of things, if we are impatient, a lot of time we give up. Even when you are making progress, but because you feel you are not making progress quick enough of that, then you might just kind of give up, and then not being able to reach where you could have reached if you have a little bit more patience. And so I think the practice of patience is very crucial from that point of view. And from spiritual point of view, the patience is extremely important. If you don't have patience, you can easily get frustrated and angry with things, or peoples, or sentient beings. And when you have that kind of strong frustration and anger, then it is hard to have compassion. Whether it is if you have a frustration and anger towards yourself, it's hard to have compassion for yourself. If you are very frustrated with someone and you have anger towards someone, it's very difficult to have compassion for that person. So impatience is the obstacles, interference for cultivation of loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. And for someone who is trying to become more compassionate, more kind, more loving, impatience is one of the obstacles. On the other hand, if you have patient mind, then it becomes more easier to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, whether it's towards yourself or towards someone else. And patience, because the patience and compassion, loving kindness, and bodhicitta are so strongly related, therefore the practice of patience is one of the main passion for the bodhisattvas practice. Even though they've engaged in all six perfection, but the patience is another, because it is so strongly related with loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. And you can see that in everything, you know. For example, if you have some health issue and then through treatment you are recovering, you know, if you have patience, you will be grateful that you had treatment and you are recovering, even though it's taking a little bit more time. You will be very grateful, thankful, joyful that you have this treatment and you are making a progress and you are recovering. But if you are impatient, it can be very frustrating. You are making a progress, but because you want that, you know, to recover in a week, and it's taking 2 weeks, or you expected impatience, maybe 1 month, and then it's taking 2 months. And instead of being happy about that, the improvement, but you become frustrated and unhappy that, and you see how, depending on how patient or impatient you are, how negative and unhappy you become, or grateful, thankful, and joyful you become. More than the situation itself is your state of mind in dealing with that. Your patientness with that or your impatientness with that your state of mind make huge difference, you know, in our life. And it's same with any organization, you know. And I think I might have said before, but you know, one of the things that I noticed, I think in every country, because of impatience, we want to resolve very quickly, you know. We want to resolve very quickly. And that become a lot of time disadvantage. Because when you want result quickly, people doesn't think long term. They don't plan long term. It's immediate. If you make immediate profit, it is all about immediate profit, because you have to show result immediately, you know. So the people who are trying to run the countries or organizations, because they have been pressured to show the result immediately. So therefore, if to show a result immediately, sometimes you take actions. In long term, it will be harmful, but short term, you can have a good result. And that is where, whether it's a politician or is a leader of that, they have to show And so they don't care about the long term. Sometimes even they care about that because the public want them to show the result quickly. And so therefore, that is another things that why planners, people who are planning, running different, because our impatience, because we want result quickly. So that's what they plan. That's what they try to achieve. Show quick result. Even in the long term, that might be damaging. Whereas if we are more patient, then we will think, even we don't have a quick result, but in long term, it is going to be a better for betterness, then people think of that. But if you become impatient, then it becomes difficult. And I think to me, that seems to be another factor that is affecting as a countries, as a organizations, to think more long term, because the people expect them to show result very quickly. And I guess you see a lot of, in business, you see a lot of them, some of those CEO or whatever, they took those risks because if they don't show result quickly, they will be fired, and they are being pressured. And so therefore, to not only show result, but to show the result quickly. And I think there is that kind of pressure, and that comes from impatience, and I think that kind of pressure is not only CEO, it is pressure for every kind of leaders of any organizations, as a country or as a different organizations. There is so much. And sometimes we do that ourselves, Mm. Not sometimes, I think we do a lot. Mm. So how impatience affects on so many different levels, on personal level, on personal worldly level, on personal spiritual level, and as a society, how it affects the running of the society, all of that, and so I think patience is so crucial and important practice factor that we need to cultivate and learn and train. And we see that it's so easy to. I think one of the things easy to see is when you're driving. How people's impatience puts their life and others' life in danger. Sometimes it's just 1 second. It doesn't make more than 1 second difference. Sometimes just 2 minutes different, 5 minutes different, hardly that, more than that. But because of the impatience, people even you are impatient, maybe you might not physically show it immediately, but in a like that, you see people using curse word, showing the middle fingers, all kind of things that you see so yeah. So we are on the verse number 27. That's on patience. For the conqueror children, here is saying for the Bodhisattvas, okay, who desire the enjoyment of virtues, the highest virtues of fully enlightenment, who desire the enjoyment of the highest virtues of enlightenment, all harmers are like precious treasures. So they train, the Bodhisattvas train to see, all the sufferings, all the pains, all the challenges, difficulties that we might encounter in our life, all of them as a treasure, precious treasure. Not only they see that, they also see all the harmers who have created that kind of challenging situations, difficult situations, painful situations. Even those beings, even those sentient beings, as a precious treasure. And something precious treasure is something you hold very dear. So instead of being so upset and angry, they train to see them as a very dear, very precious. Through training that way, when you see something, whether it's a situation itself, or whether someone who has created that situation itself, if you are able to see and feel the preciousness of them, then there is no reason for you to be so upset and angry. Your mind wouldn't be disturbed. You will be not so upset, angry. If you are not, if your mind is not disturbed, upset and angry, you don't have to experience more pain and suffering that is being created by your own mind. Okay? We are already experiencing some pain, whether it's physical or emotional pain, certain level of discomfort, pain due to the certain situations. But on top of that, because of that, your mind is disturbed, and because of that, your mind is frustrated, angry, and upset, then the level of the pain, suffering has been multiplied, increased. So that is creation in your own mind. The physical discomfort or whatever situation that comes through might last, that discomfort might last for maybe a couple of seconds, minutes, or maybe days, weeks, months. But the mind that is being disturbed by not being able to let it go and by disturbed by that could last for years and years. The physical discomfort is gone, but because of your mind holding on that, you could experience the pain for years and maybe whole your life. Let's keep one example. Someone says something intentionally, unintentionally, whatever. Someone says some harsh word. Okay. There's unpleasantness or discomfort of hearing that harsh word is maybe 1 second, few minutes. Okay. That didn't last for days and weeks. Someone said something and it lasted maybe a few minutes, few minutes, you heard that, and that is discomfort. but not being able to let go of that for someone having said that. And the pain that comes through that, then continue, not just few minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and all is coming from our own mind. The actual really discomfort through that speech only lasts a few minutes, maybe not even a few minutes. And this is example of any kind of situations, and if I'm not frustrated, disturbed or upset, angry by that person's speech or that person's behavior, actions, then I don't have to mentally suffer. I don't have mentally suffer. I don't have to mentally suffer for a whole life or for years or weeks or months, weeks or days or hours, And if I don't suffer, I'm more likely to be, if I do not suffer, I will be more happy. If I'm more happy, I'm likely to hurt others less. On the other hand, when my mind is unhappy, my mind is in turmoil, I'm more likely to hurt others. So, it gives you mental peace, happiness, as well as it creates a condition that you become less likely to become violent, less likely to hurt others. On the other hand, when my mind is disturbed and unhappy and turmoil, I'm more prone. Not only I lose my peace and happiness, I'm more prone and more likely to hurt and harm others easily. Because when you are not happy and disturbed, your mind started to become more negative. When your mind started to become more negative, then we started to make more stories, how that bad that person is and all in this. And through that, then how more likely we are going to respond in a negative way, and then put others in a kind of danger to receive harm and hurt. Therefore, it is a practice of conqueror children to cultivate patience without hatred for anyone. And so therefore, it's crucial to train ourselves to cultivate the patience and without any kind of anger and hatred towards anyone, and especially those we might feel who are responsible for our difficult situations and pain and sufferings, either our or others. We could get angry because it is done to us or to someone else. So first I want to kind of clear one of the kind of misunderstanding of patience in our society, how, what it means by practice of patience, like in Buddhist spiritual point of view, and how we kind of misunderstand or misinterpret or in our life many times. As one of the masters says, patience is, and also it here says, patience is state of mind that you don't get angry and hatred when someone engage in certain behavior or actions and that you don't agree or that you feel is harmful, painful, whatever that action might be. When you don't have anger, hatred, that state of mind is the patience. When your mind is not disturbed, agitated and disturbed by that person's actions, behavior, or the situation itself. When your mind is not disturbed and agitated, the mind that is calm, peaceful, not being agitated and disturbed by the situations, by the event, by the circumstances, or the beings who have created that kind of event, circumstances, that is the patience. It's important to know is a state of mind. So while your mind is, not agitated, while your mind is not disturbed, while your mind is not angry, and while you don't have hatred, at the same time you feel, that kind of act is injustice, whether it's done to someone else or yourself, if such kind of actions is harmful, you should stand up for that. So patience doesn't mean you don't stand up. Do you get it? Whereas a lot of time, the way people understood is that, patience means you don't respond. Understanding being a passive, While your state of mind is in that kind of calm, peaceful, unagitated, you can, in some cases, of course, maybe it's the best not to respond. In some cases, it has to be responsive so that the harm and damage is not done. Or that is not, the harm and damage can be reduced. But then it's when you do response, with what state of mind you respond is the key. For example, let's say my boss, let's say my boss kind of, you can say, insult you or humiliate you or abuse you or whatever, you feel that, and there is a lot of, your mind is very upset, agitated, disturbed, anger, for such actions, behavior, being humiliated, abused, insult, whatever. So, but you cannot, maybe we cannot respond because I'm afraid, maybe we are afraid that we might lose our job. To speak up, And so you don't say anything, or you might not always say anything. Maybe you might even, pretend you are not upset, all is okay. Externally, it seems that person's patient, isn't it? The person seems like I'm patient externally because I didn't respond. I didn't kind of say any bad things back. I didn't even try to defend myself. And not only I didn't try to say any bad things, negative, I not only didn't try to defend myself, neither I didn't, maybe I even say good things about that person's. From outside, it looks like that person is very patient. And normally we think that is the patience. No, that is not the patience here we are talking about. Because your mind is boiling inside. Your mind is boiling with all this kind of disturbed mind, agitating mind, anger, all of that. So that is not called patience. Even though a lot of people might identify that as a patience. Patience is state of mind. So that is so important. That is on the other hand, so in that cases, you didn't respond because of, you didn't have the power, courage, or to stand up or to say, because you are afraid of losing your job, or maybe afraid of, losing friends, whatever, that's different things, because that person was more powerful than you. Patience is when you are more powerful and you can easily harm someone because they are being nasty to you. But, because of certain understanding, your mind is not agitated, disturbed, and you don't take any actions. Even when you have the opportunity and power to hurt and harm, you don't respond that way. That is more patience. So, because I often hear a lot of time, people cautioning when we talk about patience, and people think, then does that mean if someone is exploiting, taking advantage, harming, hurting, do I allow them to do that? Do you get it? Patience means allowing them to do that. There is this misunderstanding a lot of time. Instead of understanding its state of mind, the patience seems to, in our ordinary usage of patience, seems to be kind of more with actions, Here is more of state of mind. So I gave one example of that, with your boss, where your mind is very disturbed, agitated, and angry, but at the same time, your action seems very patient. And from spiritual point of view, from Dharma point of view, is not patient, because your mind is internal, violent, disturbed, agitated. On other hand, someone might not be, their mind might not be disturbed by such person's behavior or actions because of their certain way of looking at things, because of their practice, because of, seeing things differently, even though they see, such actions of humiliating, insulting, that actions, but your mind is just kind of undisturbed, unagitated, no angry, no bad feelings, But at the same time, you think, if you allow that person to do that, it will be very damaging for other person, because he or she will do to others. And it is also bad for them because you are allowing them to be abusive. And so therefore, out of that understanding, while your mind is not disturbed by that person's action, behavior towards you, but because you see such can be damaging and harmful for the person itself and for many others and for the society, then you think, I have to stand up, I have to speak, I have to take actions. And you might, accordingly, whatever you feel, what you have to use your wisdom to see what action is best to take, And according to that, you might take whatever actions you feel that could stop more damage, more harm to other beings and that person itself. And when you take that action from outside, it seems that person not patient, but that person patience. That actions come from that state of mind. Non-anger, non-hatred, non-agitated, non-disturbed state of mind, more calm, peaceful from that state of mind. That person is patient. So it is interesting, that is like when we have been starting the Dharma, the Buddhism, it always comes back to the mind. Always. Whether you are patient or impatient, it's not the action, it's your state of mind. Whether you are compassionate or not compassionate, it's state of your mind, not necessarily action itself. The practice of generosity is more than external, is more internal. In all practice, because sometimes the outside it look very compassionate act, but if it's coming from a wrong intention and motivation, it's not compassionate actions. Outside it look compassionate actions because it seems like outside someone is helping someone, but the intention, motivation might be very wrong and bad, and so that can't be compassionate. Compassion should come from compassionate acts, should come from good heart, good state of mind, good heart. And in some cases, someone act might seem uncompassionate because someone might seem like a little bit harsh. Their actions might seem like a little bit harsh. But if it is coming from really good, compassion, because they really care about that person, because they really have concern about that person, because they really want to help, coming from depth of that, and therefore the action might seem a little bit harsh, but it's a compassionate act because it comes from the good state and really good heart. So, and so same thing here, the patience is, so that is one of the things I wanted to kind of clear, okay? Because that is one of the lot of question I often hear. Because of not really understanding that part. Mm. And again, patience is not something like pretending that we are calm and peaceful when our mind is not calm and peaceful. Okay? When your mind is disturbed, agitated, and then you try to pretend your mind is not agitated and your mind is not disturbed, also neither that is patience. Also, neither when your mind is disturbed and agitated and you try to distract yourself by thinking something else, by doing something else, but still there is that agitation and disturbed mind, even though it's not manifesting very strongly because you have distracted your mind towards something else, but it is still there. So therefore, again, that doesn't mean patience. But when you don't have that feeling of that disturbance and agitated by that the situation or someone who create that situation, then that is where the patience is, you know. So and it required time, it required a training, you know, not to be agitated and not to be disturbed by such person's actions, act of humiliation, insulting, whatever that act, you know. Yes. Yes, equanimity is trying to feel same to everyone's, you know, without being discriminating, being so attached to some people or some sentient beings and having so much anger towards others. So it is having more kind of equal kind of feelings, um, whereas patience is not being disturbed, agitated by someone's, whoever that might be, someone's actions, behaviors, attitudes, or sometimes it doesn't have to be someone's. It can be certain circumstances, situation that manifest in our life, you know. So we could be very upset and frustrated with that. Let's say our own health, you know. Maybe there is no one to blame for our health, even though sometimes we might blame, even though sometimes we might find a reason to blame someone for our physical health, you know, when we have health issues. Sometimes we might blame there. Sometimes we might blame ourselves. Or sometimes, you know, we might not blame anyone, but, you know, there is a sense of being very frustrated and upset and angry with the whole situation itself, you know. So that state is impatient state of mind when due to that situation where our mind become agitated and disturbed and frustrated and angry with that kind of the situation itself. That is, and then your mind's impatience, you know, your mind is in state of impatience. So, so then when we, so I was talking about it required training, you know, just as it here say is one of the practice, you know, is to see that person and person's actions, seeing it as a precious, like a treasure that you, and it is not easy to see that as a precious treasure. You know? But someone who has trained their mind every day through practice, trying to see everything, any adversary, any difficult, any challenges, any discomfort that they encounter in their life, from very small to middle to great, whatever, they always train, this is the greatest opportunity for me to practice patience. It's the greatest opportunity for me to progress in my spiritual path. This is the greatest opportunity for me to go beyond ordinary state. So when you train in that, and when slowly you begin to really feel these are really great opportunity. And when you are started to feel that way, then with that, then you see, oh, I'm so grateful I got this opportunity to practice patience. I'm so grateful I got this opportunity to step up myself from very ordinary to more spiritual and more higher path. It is great opportunity for me to become more stronger. And so when you are able to see that, when you are able to feel that, then any kind of that situation arises, you are immediately, oh, this is a great opportunity. Therefore, you feel it's like a treasure. And therefore, when you see it as like a treasure, great opportunity, then your mind doesn't get disturbed, agitated. And that will not lead you to frustration and anger. And then and that is how you can develop patience. But of course, to reach point, then of course, it requires practice. Yes, again.
Yeah, so perhaps you would agree with this. Suppressing anger is not.
No, absolutely not. I think I was, yeah, absolutely, there is a lot of people, when they come to study Buddhism, a lot of people misunderstand the practice of patience and many others as being a suppression. They misunderstand. You cannot suppress. It will explode one day if you keep on suppressing it. There is only, you suppress, and then there is no more space to suppress, and then one day it explodes, and when it explodes, it is a big, it's like, someone says something, someone did something, and I haven't let it go. It's there, but I decided, oh, it's small things, maybe it's okay. But inside, you hasn't let it go. It is, even though it's not a big problem, even though it's not making you big, but there is still there a little bit kind of resentment in subtle level. And another time happens, then all which you have been suppressing, then slowly become more full and full. Then one day it explodes, and then you come with all this. Oh, you are doing this, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did. So you have endless list, And that is why in relationship, you see very often when they have crashed, because there are things, small things they had happened in their life. And they didn't really talk about it. They didn't try to deal with it because they hold on that, kind of suppress. Because they think, why would I make a big noise about it? But still inside, you haven't been able to let it go. And then one thing, when it really break, then both sides have all the list. And then it becomes very difficult to work out on that when there is too many lists. Why you have so much upset and bitterness of that person because you have been doing this, so many lists. It seems like almost we cannot fix it. If we have done it when we were just one list, two lists, maybe we could have easily discussed it and work on that. But now list is endless, so it seems very difficult to find And that is the case, because that is suppressing, you haven't let it go. And when we talk about patience or any kind of meditation, in patience, you bring up that emotion that you haven't been able to let it go. There is, even it is very subtle level, there is some kind of resentful, the way he said or the way he did or the way, all of that, whatever. And you bring that, in your meditation, you bring that feeling, you feel that feeling. And then you say, why am I feeling that way? And then your anger have many reasons why I'm feeling that way, because of this and this and that. You have many, all of that. And the next stage is there really valid reasons the way you feel it, And so you do a different analysis, and then trying to find the situation and understand the situations and the person from different perspective, from different angles, looking from many different perspectives, many different angles. And when you try to investigate, analyze from many different angles, many different perspectives, you begin to see the situation and the person and person's action, behavior differently. And when you see it differently, and then you have different perspective about the situation itself and the person itself. And when you have different perspective about the situation and person, then you don't have same level of resentful anger and all of that. And then that is when you are able to let it go, So it's not holding, but now you brought it and you deal with that, and then you have even let it go, and now more it doesn't bother you. And so that is how. So it's not suppressing. Suppressing is, you keep it. It's still there. There's still resentment, and you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to revisit that feeling. You don't want to feel that feeling, and you try to ignore it. You try to get distracted. But when you do meditation, patience, any kind of meditation, you purposefully bring the feelings and then looking at it. Okay? Sometimes it can be painful because certain feeling you don't want to revisit because it's very painful. But if you have not dealt with it, it is always going to bother you. It's always going to bother you. And a small thing can trigger you. I see people who have problem with certain individuals for no reason, then because they resemble someone they have conflict, whether it's their parent or whether it's their friend or their partners that they had problem and they have not been able to deal with that. So there is that they have problem with someone, whether it is their parent or whether it is their ex-partners or someone they have not been able to deal with it. And then they see someone, maybe sometimes facially they resemble them, sometimes their behavior or attitude resemble them, and they started to dislike that person very badly. And even though it's nothing personal there, just because that person resembled that, and that you have not been able to deal with that, and it's still there, and that you see very often, And so therefore, it's better to go through, even it's painful, to revisit that, and then trying to work with that, bring that and work with that through your meditation and practice, and then overcome it. The way it is like the dirt in the water of the glass. If you don't shake it, the dirt stay on the very bottom. On the surface, you don't see the dirt. It's clear. So you think it's clean, but deep down there is a dirt. When it shakes, then there is the dirt. And same thing, problem which we have not dealt it is there, and then something trigger it, and then like shaking, trigger it, and it comes out. And it can be triggered by many things. Sometimes it's just something, some small experience, some experience can trigger that. And so therefore, so suppressing is not a healthy. Neither expressing it, kind of like cushion, less than cushion, and then thinking this is my enemy, and then expressing by hitting on that also is not healthy too. It is just it might give you relief for a few moments for a certain period, but still when you think of that person and that person's actions or behavior, still it might only really help you to release the energy that has so strong when you started to beat, whether it's pillow or whatever, non-sentient beings, objects, or maybe sentient beings, It might feel relief for a few moments because you are relieving that energy that you have been holding so strongly, but that is not the real healthy solution to that. The healthy solution is to bring that and then look from different perspective, trying to analyze and trying to understand from different angle and different perspective, because that is the key to everything. It's all our perspective. It's all our perspective. What is delicious, what is undelicious? We all have different perspective about that. For someone, spices, the food need to have some spicy and it's delicious. For someone, spices, no. For someone, kind of sweet in some kind of meals, food, like noodles, something, is no. For someone, it's delicious. And it is our perspective, And so, therefore, because my perspective is not delicious, and therefore, when that food is served, I'm unhappy. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because to me it's not delicious. And it's not delicious to me because I have certain mindset, my perspective, I mean, I have my taste have changed over many years after I have become here, being exposed to different food. My taste has changed because my perspective has changed. I'm feeling is okay, and that's also in my mind is okay and is also delicious and is fine. And so, once my mindsets have changed, the taste seems to have changed. Started to liking it. I mean, it is clear. So many examples, but definitely I can see very clearly. With the food. How I don't think it is just the taste itself. It's your mindset. because before, because I grew up in a society where we have a big meals, big meals, we. So when you are served with one sandwich or two sandwiches or hamburger or salad, it is not a meal. That is my mindset because of your growing up, because it's not so big, So you need a meals mean big. It can be snack, okay? If someone says snack, then I'm okay. My mind can take it as a snack because we do have like that snack, instant noodle soups or like that kind of the small. But the meals mean very heavy and big, So when you are served that, you feel kind of a little bit, it's not a meal, and so you don't enjoy as much as you it's just like a snack. It's not meals. But after having come here and that my mind has changed slowly, because also we have this mindset from where you come from. If you don't eat big amount, you will be weak. So that is another mindset perspective of that why we need a big meals. If you don't have big meals, then you will not have enough energy. You will be weak. That is. But now with the new coming exposed to the new world and new knowledge and all of that, it's not about amount of the food that you eat. Because of that, you have certain different perspective. And because of that different perspective, you have less kind of resistance to have even as a salad for a meal or even as certain salads and as a sandwich or burgers, whatever. And so I can taste it better now without any kind of that kind of. So I think it's not just the taste, it's not just the tongue touch, but it is the behind that, the mindset. That is my observation, at least it's my observation and my experience. I don't know whether that is your observation, your experience or not. So what the reason I'm giving example was, when we change that mindset and perspective and perception about that, by changing that, then something that food that you doesn't enjoy can become enjoyable. Something you dislike can be likable. And by liking and disliking, your mental state changes. Something you dislike, you have aversion. And so you don't have to have aversions. And so you don't have to be angry when you encounter something you dislike and have aversion. And so all this can change by changing our perspective about the things. And so whole practice of meditating, analytical meditation, is all about changing your perspective by looking, investigating, analyzing from many different angles. Because when we have certain feeling, anger, we only see from one angle, one perspective, and believe that is everything. And so then your anger, your emotion anger, say I'm angry because of this and that, and you have certain perspective about that. But then when you look from many perspectives, many different angles, analyze it, then you begin to see things are not exactly the way as your anger painted at the very beginning. Just like everything's, our lives go up and downs, um, there are times where people feel they need a spiritual, and there are times when they feel they don't need it, and there are times they find helpful, and there are times maybe they don't find as helpful. So it's just like, anything else, whether you call it karma or whether you call it circumstances, situation in their life, so we can kind of, if someone has crisis and they want to work with that, and if they want help, we'll be more than happy to, if there can be any help. But more than that, we cannot kind of force them to like it. We cannot force them to come. We cannot force them to, and that is, I think that is same with not only TNL, every different Buddhist group, not only Buddhist group, with every spiritual path, people, because of their certain situation in their life, they have drawn to the spiritual path, and then certain situation change in their life, and they are taken away from the spiritual life, and so different different circumstances bring people to the spiritual, and different circumstances lead away from the spiritual aspect. And so I think so everyone has to find, way to do it. I think, and it is not only with TNL. I think it is with all the groups. And we have different, as I said, sometimes we have different personalities. Sometimes people stop coming because they have certain issues, certain individuals, because they are different personalities, and sometimes people stop coming because they are too busy with something else, and it is, I see that myself, even when, like, in a monastery, when you go every day, whether it's a teaching, whether it's a practice, whether it's a class, you don't have to push yourself. It's in your kind of daily schedules, and you just feel easy. But then you are unable to go because you miss one, because there was something happening, and you miss second time something. Then after it has become, you have missed 4, 5, then it become you need a lot of, you need to work very hard to again restart. Whether it's practicing meditation, someone who has a gap of practicing meditation for, it requires a lot of time for them to push and give, and again to restart. But someone who has doing that regularly, they don't have to do that. And I see that also happening with students sometimes for different reasons. Sometimes they miss 1, 2, 3, and then slowly kind of be distant. Not because they want to be distant, but situations lead them in that way too. And then in certain time, in certain part of their life, certain things change, and then again they are kind of brought back to the path. And so I think, and sometimes, it is, you connect with certain teachings and you don't connect with certain teachings. And sometimes people come and they like it, certain teachings, and they're connected, and then of course some teaching they couldn't connect it, and then they couldn't they stopped coming it. And in some cases, you know, some people connect with certain teachers in certain way at the very beginning, and later maybe they don't feel connected. And some they don't connect at the very beginning, later they feel connected, just like everything else. And so yeah, if they need help, the help is always there. At the same time, you don't want to make them like that you are trying to pull them when they are not interested. Do you get it? For whatever reasons. Yeah. And accepting, you know, is another part, like everything's, you know, even though you would like to see students being dedicated and committed and for the rest of their life and all of that, but that does not happen. And you have to accept that is their choice, their life, their karma, and so on, you know. And so, yeah. So we're talking about the patience, and then when we talk about the patience, you know, patience with the difficult situations, being patient with the difficult situations, whenever we encounter any kind of suffering, pain, adversity, difficult situations, being patient with that, and not allowing that, as I mentioned at the very beginning, to overwhelm and become too devastating and making your mind too down, too low, and too depressed, you know. And we become that when we think it is, when we focus too much on negativities, the negative side of the situations, when we forget to see the positive side of the situation as well, you know. Sometimes it closes something and it opens new door. So we only focus, one door has been closed, and we can't see the new door has been opened. And to be able to see, absolutely, this door has been closed, but at the same time, it has opened to a new door. And sometimes we focus too much on how this door has been closed and never focus on how this has opened new door, you know. And so it is all about your mind focusing on where, you know. And especially when you are in situation itself, it's hard to focus on the positive side. And therefore, when it is not too bad, we have to train and learn to look for positive side all the time. And then so it becomes more natural way of looking that way. And when something happens, you immediately your habitual way of thinking, the habitual way of investigating, habitual way of looking at things, you try to see something positive in that. And you can always find something positive in that if you learn to do that, and if you can do that, you know. And when things are difficult, we feel like this is the worst thing that could happen to me, you know. But again, if we learn to see maybe this could have been the best thing that could happen to me. Again, if we have not trained ourselves in normally, it would be hard to feel that way, that it could be the best thing that, but if you have trained your mind and your mind have that kind of way of thinking, it it goes more natural way, that way of thing. And I see that, like for example, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, and even with Lama Sabar Rinpoche, I see that that seems to be their very kind of natural way of responding when something goes wrong, always finding something positive in that, and not losing the hope, and not being kind of overwhelmed, devastated, because they always see something despite the there was a word I'm trying to think. Despite the setback, because you wanted to go, but then at the same time, you are able to see something light in that, something positive in that. And so that makes huge difference, that makes huge difference, learning to look that way. And if you are able to see that, then you will be more patient. Your mind will be less disturbed and agitated, and so it is learning to look that way, there is a story, I don't know whether it's true story or it was just kind of made to as a metaphor, for the teachings. Whether it really happens or it's just a metaphor example, I don't know. But there's a story of a king and in India, long old time king, and then very trusted minister who he take like his right hand minister, where he take to hunting when he ever go to hunting and other things. And so they were hunting, and then they were chasing a tiger, and it went deeper and deeper in the forest as they were chasing. And then they encountered cannibals, So the cannibals, no, before that, so in one of, before that, then they were, then when they are trying to kill the tiger, the tiger kind of jumped and kind of took his thumb, the king's thumb. The tiger bite his thumb, and of course they were able to kill it, but before they killed him, bite his thumb, and he lost his thumb, And then of course the king was in pain and very upset, and the minister said, this could have been best thing that could happen to you. And the king got very upset, You lose your thumb, and then you are saying that could be the best thing that could happen to you, And so he got really upset, And so he imprisoned him for not being loyal and not being, and kind of saying such things, He put him to prison. And then again, the king went to the hunting another time. And then in the forest again, he went deeper, and then he was caught by the cannibals, And then they were going to eat him. And I think someone was there with him. And then as they have rituals before. And then in their ritual, the person need to be kind of perfect, So he was missing his thumb. So part of ritual, he cannot be that, because it has to be someone who is, and so therefore he was left. He was what do you call, released, And then he remembered the minister saying that could have been the best thing that could happen to you, and it was. Because of that, his life was saved. If he has not lost the thumb, today he would have been, that would be his end of his life, So then he remembered the minister saying that, and he said that could have been the best thing that, and it was the best thing that could happen in this situation. And then he went to the, then he kind of understood kind of the minister's wisdom, and so that reminded him, and he released him, and he went to see him and released him and said, I'm sorry for putting you in the prison for having said that, sharing your wisdom on that. And the minister said, that could have been the best thing, that you put me in prison. And the king got a little bit annoyed, Here, I'm trying to be nice to him and trying to release, again, he's trying to be too smart or whatever, that, again, he's saying that that could have been best thing that could happen to him. And he said, how? And he said, if it wasn't, you were not put in prison, you would have taken me for hunting with you, because that is why you always took me. And I will be the one who they will be caught, because you put in prison, you saved my life. And so that is a story, that is the story, whether it is a true story or it is just a metaphor of that teaching, but very true. A lot of things at that moment we might feel is the worst thing that could happen, that has happened in my life, but that when you look from long term later, that could have been the best thing that could happen to you. And maybe many of you have already have some experience behind that, when you are in that state where you felt that was the worst thing, but now when you look back, maybe you think maybe that was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because that might have opened a lot of things for you, knowing about sometimes about yourself, sometimes knowing about your ability, sometimes, because sometimes we get stuck to something and we are unable to explore more side of ourselves, our skill, our ability. Someone closed the door and you have no choice than to explore other things. And then you begin to rediscover yourself, your ability, your skills, which before you thought you don't have all of that, and opening new things, and all of things, I think, and so to be able to reminded of that in that state, and to be that, it might not be as bad. And it not only is bad, it could have been the best thing that could happen to you. And so through that kind of way of thinking, you can try to keep it more positive. And I think, sometimes I feel something with the world situation like that. Sometimes we have to come to the edge to wake up, for the whole humanity, for the whole world to wake up. And I think we are reaching a point where more and more people are waking up in many, many areas. When things are going well, we are asleep. People doesn't wake up. We don't know how bad it is. Until it becomes so bad, then people really wake up. And then they start to do something to change. It's difficult to see the dirt in ourselves. Yeah. So that was, and there is also similar. I don't want to go the story, but there is similar story with a horse, and I think it is coming from Zen. I think it is Zen Buddhist. I have seen even in they have written like a comic where, and it's very similar stories where a guy learning to run a horse and fall down and break the legs, and see everyone come and say, I'm sorry how bad it is that you broke your hand, and then father or himself saying this could have been the best thing that could happen to me, and then then the country goes to the war, and they were recruiting the armies, and then because of that he didn't have to go to the war and all of that, So like that, things that could seem bad at that time, in long term, in the short term, it could have been the best things, and to be able to remind it of that and to keep that is another kind of. And then we talk about using that to the path with our own tragedy, understanding the tragedies of others, and through that allowing us to feel more compassion for those others who have gone through similar and even worse, and then our mind becoming more open, and with that openness of the mind, you have more space to breathe, and when you have more space to breathe in that way, you don't feel too overwhelmed. When our mind becomes more narrow, then there is less space to breathe in your mind. And when there is less space to breathe in your mind, then everything seems too big, too strong, too overwhelming. And we, of course, we always want things to improve and get better, and we try. We try to make things better and improve in every aspect of our life, is whether it's worldly life or whether it's spiritual life. In any case, but at the same time, sometimes things doesn't go the way we want, as much as we want, as much as we try, due to whatever, whether we call it karma, or whether we call it, you happen to things in the wrong time, in the wrong place, unlucky, whatever you call it, because things to go the way we want, it doesn't depend on one condition or two conditions. It depends on so many causes and conditions. Even from your side, you have done best. It doesn't mean the problem sometimes when things go wrong, sometimes either we blame others or ourselves, and sometimes we feel, I'm not good enough. That's why, maybe I've not done myself good enough. I'm incapable. That is why the result wasn't the way I wanted, and it didn't improve. It didn't give. But sometimes it's not about you. Even though you have tried your best part, it's like an engine where there is so many parts that has to, and your job of clicking one of the engine inside one of the part that you have to do, that you have done it, but then they are missing from other part, so you can't blame yourself. In such situation, then accepting can be less painful, accepting it without being harsh on yourself, and it is true, just as there is saying, one hand doesn't make a clap, to make a clap, you need two hands. Same way, to things to happen in everything, we need many cause conditions. It's not just one condition. Even from your side, you have the one hand, but to make the others, and so therefore, and through that, not allowing yourself to be so down because something didn't go so well, and kind of being harsh on yourself, feeling and becoming, losing your confidence, and and becoming depressed because you feel you are incapable, because things didn't go the way you want, Or sometimes we blame others for things not going the way we want. But again, you can't blame from someone. It's many causes and conditions, And so I think understanding that whether things to go right way, wrong, anyway, so many causes, and it is not just one cause and conditions. There are so many things has to come together. Just for example, let's just like take a planting a seed. For that plant to grow, so many things has to come together. The way the soil and the seed, and whether there's too much bugs, or whether there's too much weeds, or all of that. It's not just one, so many causes and conditions that could, in order for the plant to grow in the right way. And it's not just one cause and conditions. But sometimes it's hard for us to see that. Things go wrong, either we blame ourselves or whether we blame someone else for everything. And it's not only just others and yourself. There are many others cause and condition involved there too. And so through that understanding, again, not allowing your mind to be too depressed or too down, dealing with that difficult. Even though some of the most enlightened beings that has come in this world, whether it's Buddha Shakyamuni, not everything went the way he wants. Jesus came, not everything went the way he wants. All of those great spiritual masters from all different spiritual paths, those are the most enlightened beings. Even things didn't go with the way they want. And it's not due to lack of their compassion, it's not due to lack of their wisdom, it's not due to lack of their skillful means. From others also, a lot of things has to come together. It's not just one side. Many things has to come together. And so therefore, and some of the most smart people, most intelligent, smart people that has come in this world, the greatest scientists, the greatest, all of that, not everything went the way they want. They were unable to fix everything that they want to fix it. So therefore, because when things doesn't go, then we tend to be too harsh on ourselves. And so through that understanding, being more compassionate, either to yourself or someone who is unable to achieve the way you want or the way they want. I think it's important. If you have more compassion, then definitely you will have a patience and not be upset and angry as well. Especially in this culture, I see people seem to have this strong kind of blaming on themselves when things, and feeling bad about themselves, you know, when the child is always that, you know, either you blame yourself or you blame others, you know. Sometimes we blame others, our upbringing by our parents or others for our situations. Or when the children doesn't turn out and well, then again, maybe we blame ourselves. As a parent, maybe I didn't take care of them well. I'm lacking some things. And because of that, you know, but then, you know, whether you call it karma, whether you call it whatever you call it, you know, even as same upbringing by same parent with same kind of care, love, compassion, sometimes two children go in totally different directions. One very responsible and one totally irresponsible. Someone very compassionate person turn out and someone turn out very violent. If it is something wrong in your upbringing, then all children should have become that way, you know. And it doesn't happen in all family. In all family, all children have slightly different. They come with their own personality, imprint, karma, and many things. And also their environment, not only in your family environment and others, schools, friends, something which sometimes you don't have total control over, you know. And so therefore, you know, so with that kind of, and there's nothing that you can change about it now, you know. Of course, doesn't mean you don't try to help them in whatever, but whatever they have turned out to be is already turned. You cannot go back and reverse it, you know. Unlike like the clock, you can kind of put it down. You cannot do that, and so therefore there is no point in dwelling on that, you know. But we do a lot, and it's unhealthy. And so, you know, sometimes it's very painful, but we have to accept it, you know. Sometimes it is very painful, but we need to accept the way things are and being okay and happy with that, you know. We have tried everything to make things better, improve from outside, but having tried from outside because of lack of many other causes and conditions, things does not seem to change, improve, and being okay and happy and accepting it will be less painful. And when you are less painful, and when you are in better state of mind, maybe anything could change. And that changing of your own energy could make things better. There is more possibility of positive changes when there is better positive energy in yourself, you know. But when there is too much negative energy in yourself, there is more obstacles to positive changes. Because when I am negative, when I am filled with negative energies, you know, the way I interact with others, respond with others, is different than when I'm in positive state of mind and positive energies. The others also feel that way to certain degrees. And then something trying to find certain, if there is some difficulties and to walk out. If it is positive, then there's more chances of being walking positively. But when there's more negative energy, then it becomes more challenging. And so I think, those are, I think, important, I think, factors. And I think that is one of the things, I think I always feel like Dalai Lama, so many different people from all different kind of fields. Some of the businessmen, some of the politicians from all different views and different ideologies, and very normal, ordinary peoples. Everyone who come there, he is able to communicate and they seem to get something positive. And I think because of that, his energies, his loving kindness, compassion, openness, and his positiveness. His positiveness, and that energies, people feel that. And even before they come, I've seen some interviews, by the journalists of those who made some documents, and they had before they went to see him, they had all these cautions written, and they want to really kind of what you call screw not yeah, do that, really kind of have all these difficult cautions and put all. But once they are there and they started meeting and start conversation, they started to kind of melt down, and they started to have different feeling, emotions, and then their caution changed, and all of that, is interesting how that changes because of someone's energy, inner energy from that. And you can imagine, someone you have difficult relationship who want to kind of screw you and saying, all of that, and then they feel your energy once they are close to you, and then they just melt down. And then they started to be more open, more kind, more compassionate, and trying to have that discussions with more open, more respect, more compassionate way. And then you are more likely to find a solution to whatever problem it is. And so I think, it is a. So yeah, we will stop here.